Information shared on the following program is for general information purposes only. It does not constitute legal, tax, investment, or other advice, nor is it intended to recommend any particular investments, products, or financial instruments. Always seek advice from your financial advisor, attorney, or accountant with regard to investment, legal, or tax questions.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Well-known retirement planning specialist and fiduciary Tony Walker loves high interest rates, and he says you should love them too. Extra, extra, read all about it.
Welcome to the only show in the country dedicated to helping savers worry less about money, the Worry-Free Retirement, with your host, nationally recognized retirement specialist and six-time author and fiduciary, Tony Walker.
They call it interest. It's a common term tossed around by a financial world that thrives on it. And as evidence of the turmoil interest can cause in the hearts and minds of savers, interest rates have different meanings and different consequences depending on one's financial station in life. For instance, to some, high interest rates paid to savers for the use of their money, such as the high interest rates we are experiencing as we record this show in November of 2023, can be a great way to make more money than ever before without taking a bunch of risk. On the other hand, today's high interest rates are a nightmare for those needing to borrow money. Regardless of whether you understand interest rates and how and why the Federal Reserve controls interest rates, believe me, folks, interest rates are a huge deal, and for the saver not taking advantage of them is missing out on a lot of extra free money. The good news, assuming you're a saver and more concerned with the return of your money than on it, now you can safely earn a ton of money on your money without the risk. Which is the topic of today's show, why I love high interest rates, and you should too. Well, welcome folks to the Worry-Free Retirement, and yes, I am that little man in the sweater vest, high interest rate specialist and financial fiduciary, Tony Walker. And before we share with you how to safely grow your money by taking advantage of today's high interest rates, let me introduce to you two young lads who have a vested interest in making this show happen each and every week. America's favorite financial sidekick, Mr. Aaron Orander, along with Louisville, Kentucky's most laid-back graphics artist, Mr. Derek Hudson. Okay, our subject matter today is one that is commonly discussed but rarely understood. It's the financial term called interest. So just to be sure we are on the same page, let's define financial interest. Webster sums it up this way: a charge for borrowed money, generally a percentage of the amount borrowed. It could be the profit in goods or money that is made on invested capital. And finally, an excess above what is due or expected. As someone who has worked in the financial trenches for nearly 40 years, I like option 3, an excess above what is due or expected. And it gets even better when we can compound that interest over time and let the money work for us rather than us trying to work for more money. Let me explain how interest works by using this single dollar bill. With this dollar bill, you really only have 3 choices with it. Number 1, you can do nothing and just leave it in your pocket. Number 2, you can spend it, but if you spend it, you lose the dollar forever, plus, listen, what it could have earned in interest forever. Or number 3, this is a good one, you can let someone else borrow it. Yes, I said borrow it from you for a set period of time in exchange for them paying you interest to use the money. It's really not that complicated. You're either a lender or you are a borrower. Now, the key to a worry-free retirement is you want to be the lender, not the borrower. Bottom line, no matter what you do with this dollar bill, there is always a cost or a benefit to one of these 3 options. And assuming you are a saver and in possession of a few of these dollars sitting idly by and not earning any interest on it, you're going to want to stay tuned as I share with you why I love high interest rates today, and you should too. I'm Tony Walker. You're watching the Worry-Free Retirement. We'll be right back. Did you realize that if you have more than $250,000 in retirement assets, the government could tax as much as 40% of it when you go to take it out? And with current tax rates set to expire in 2025, the taxes you will owe on your 401k could climb even higher. Don't wait until 2025 to see how much Uncle Sam will take of your money. Get a game plan by logging on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com. Our Tony in the Trenches comes to us from Sherry from Lexington, Kentucky, who asks, Tony, one of my adult children is having trouble paying back a credit card. He will not tell me how much he owes, but did say that the interest being charged by the credit card company is 20%. What will this high interest ultimately cost him, and should I give him the money to pay it back now instead of letting him be saddled with all of this debt? Well, since I do not know the actual amount of debt on this particular credit card, let's make some assumptions here. Let's assume that the original loan for this young man is $20,000. All right? Don't be surprised now, folks. I see this a lot. I even see it a lot with adults who get into trouble with these high interest credit cards. And again, with interest rates going up, this is not a good time to be a borrower. So here's what happens. If they're charging 20%, and let's say this person can only pay back $400 per month, they will have it paid off. It's going to take about 10 years to pay this $20,000 debt off, which means the total cost is not just the $20,000 that they paid into it, but also they got charged $23,000 in interest. So let's think about this a minute. The bank made $23,000. That's more than the original $20,000 that went into it. So you might say, well, can't they just pay more money? Well, here's example number 2. If we change that monthly payment to $533 a month, that's a lot of money. It would be paid off in 5 years, but folks, the total cost would still be over $31,000. Oh, speaking of high interest rates, when you consider all of the other bad financial news out there, the out of control inflation right now, our nation's debt spiraling out of control, a stock market that looks more like a roller coaster than a smooth ride, and finally, these tax rates that are set to expire in 2025 and could go through the roof. Now is not a great time to be borrowing money at these high interest rates. Yet assuming you have money idle, now is a good time to turn into being the lender by loaning, that's right, I said loaning your money, so to speak, to those who would love to pay you a handsome interest for the use of it. Interest that is guaranteed currently at rates between 5 and 6%. That's right, guaranteed interest at these rates, which as a saver myself, that's why I say I love high interest, and so should you. So just in case I'm confusing you about being a lender or your money and loaning your money to others, let's go back to this dollar bill right here. And I'm going to use this as an illustration. Aaron Orander's getting the camera set up there. We're just imagining this dollar bill, okay? So you take this dollar bill and for illustrative purposes, you run over and you hand it to the bank. There it is, okay? And today's interest is 5%. And you say, bank, what kind of interest will you pay me if I leave this money and tie it up with you for 1 year? Well, the bank's going to want that money because, again, they're loaning out interest of 6, 7, even 20 or 30% with these credit cards. So at the end of the year, they're going to add a nickel. That's 5% interest at the end of the year. So think about that. That was your dollar, but instead of paying interest to somebody, you're lending the money and they just gave you 5 cents back. Now you have 2 choices with this money. You could take the whole $1.05 away from the bank, spend it or do something else with it. You could just take the nickel away and spend that and leave the principal for them to add back another nickel. Or, this is called compound interest, you could leave it there and then at the end of the year, they add another nickel. And then next year, if they're still, assuming they're still paying 5%, they add a nickel plus maybe a penny because it's compounding. Finally, they add up, it's growing by a quarter. Then all of a sudden you leave it there for years, they throw another couple of dollars in. So compound interest works in your favor, and over time, it can create a lot of money. But there's one problem with the banks right now, and we're seeing this. Many people are rushing off. We can get you CDs through Charles Schwab, but you got to think about something. What if, let's take that dollar bill back, okay? And what if the first year is 5 cents, 5%, okay? But what if the banks go back to 2% next year? Could that happen? Well, the answer is yes, it could happen. In fact, just a couple years ago, that's about what they were paying, is 2 cents on the dollar, or 2%. Well, that's only $1.07 now. What if it goes down to 1%? Well, now they're only adding a penny, and the compound interest effect is going down quickly. So that is the only problem I'm worried about with everybody rushing back to these bank CDs. So you say, well, Tony, I kind of worried about this too. We got these high interest rates. I don't think they can keep the interest rates this high. What if they start going down? Is there anything you guys offer out there that could lock in and guarantee these interest rates for much longer than just 1 or 2 years? And the answer is yes, we've got it. These are called multi-year guaranteed annuities, or for short, MYGAs. So these annuities are wonderful products, and what they can do now, we've got annuities paying anywhere from 5 to well over 6% guaranteed. And here's what an insurance company will do that issues these annuities. Unlike a bank that may only do this for 1 to 2 years on average, let's say we take that same example, okay, and we get a 5% locked in. Actually, we've got one over 6% locked in for 5 years. That means every year they're going to add 6 cents to it. And again, you can either take that interest out monthly. What a great way to get some monthly income. You can let it compound. You can do all kinds of things with that money and just let it grow and accumulate. In fact, in our next segment, we're going to go over this with you and show you how these multi-year guaranteed annuities can produce a ton of income, or if you're just wanting to grow your money at a safe rate without a bunch of fees, they can do that too. And incidentally, speaking of these multi-year guaranteed annuities, these annuities have something called an exclusion ratio for what's called after-tax money. So if you're one of those persons out there that maybe sold some real estate recently, sold a business, received an inheritance, maybe just have a lot of after-tax money that you want to earn good interest but also create some lower taxes in the future, we're going to show you that in the next segment. And then finally, I've got to mention this. Many of you right now are retired or retiring soon, and you've got way too much money, in my opinion, at risk. If you're a saver, I get it. You couldn't get high interest rates the last couple of years, but now you can. So why in the world are you still risking all of your money in the stock market or in bonds? Yes, we can put some of those monies in stocks and bonds through a Charles Schwab program, but to me, a bird in the hand's better than 2 in the bush. Let's get some of that money locked in for long term, either all the way from 5 years to 10 years through these MYGAs. So you might say, well, Tony, how do these MYGAs work? And can you give me some examples of how much they would accumulate to and how this exclusion ratio is going to help me save taxes on some of this after-tax money I got languishing around idle? I'm going to do just that. We're going to get the whiteboard out. I'm Tony Walker. Stay tuned. I'll be right back. Wondering how much money you'll need to retire? Probably a lot less than you think. I'm retirement specialist Tony Walker, and for the past 36 years, I've helped thousands of savers determine when to retire and how much money they'll need in retirement, and I can help you too. To meet in person at no cost or obligation, let me invite you to log on right now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com or call the toll-free number on your screen. We look forward to talking with you soon.
Have yourself a merry little Christmas.
WorryFree Music presents the greatest collection of Christmas covers ever assembled.
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Hey!
Tony Walker's A Humdinger Christmas. 486 timeless classics across 6 digitally remastered 8-track tapes.
Happy holidays!
Every song fills your home with holiday magic.
Sing ding a ding, ring ding a ding, ding ding a ding, dong ding a ding, ring ding a ding, ding ding a ding, ring ding a ding, ring ding a ding.
Don't miss this opportunity to receive Tony Walker's A Humdinger Christmas, the perfect way to celebrate the joy of this holiday season.
Dashing through the snow, hey, and 1-horse open sleigh, yeah.
Only $685 plus $3 shipping and handling. Order yours today.
8-track tape player not included. Offer void where prohibited.
And from all of us at Tony Walker Financial, have a Merry Christmas.
Our Live Well, Die Broke moment comes to us from a brand new client by the name of Paul, who recently enjoyed a trip involving pheasant hunting with his beloved dog, Chuck. I mean, you gotta love dogs. Oh, speaking of hunting, and in keeping with our show about interest, our own Aaron Orander has a keen interest in hunting, as this recent video reveals.
Hey, Tony, what are you doing here, man? All right, come on into the blind, but you need to be quiet. You know, on second thought, you probably need to get back to the show.
Tony, my wife and I recently attended a seminar hosted by a financial advisor at a local university. The advisor put a lot of emphasis on something called Roth conversions and said that we needed to consider doing that before the tax laws expire in 2025. The question is a Roth conversion something we should be doing, or are there other ideas to save on taxes? Here's 8 key things you might want to consider, and yes, it is a good idea to consider these things before these low tax rates expire in the year 2025. Number 1, you can defer or postpone the taxes. Number 2, you could spend more money now versus later. Number 3, consider a Roth conversion. Number 4, make tax-free gifts to your loved ones now versus later. Number 5, consider a qualified charitable distribution, or what we call a QCD. Number 6, you can include charity at your death. You can leave as much as you want to a charity because they're a tax-free entity. Number 7, I like this one, purchase tax-free life insurance, and particularly if you're trying to pass on large sums of wealth and keep it out of the hands of nursing home and creditors, you can either have the adult children own the policy on you, or you can have some sort of irrevocable trust on it. And finally, number 8, what we're going to talk about right now is consider annuities and something called the exclusion ratio. So what I thought I would do in our remaining time, again, if you're just now joining us, some of the highest interest rates I've seen in 20 years are being offered by bank CDs, but I think more importantly, by what's called multi-year guaranteed annuities, something we offer at Tony Walker Financial and have very competitive rates. In fact, we have one company paying 6.15% guaranteed for 5 years. Now again, these rates can change between now and the time you watch this show. We are recording this show in November, but once you lock in the rates, whatever those rates are with these MYGAs, they are guaranteed for a set period of time. So let's just look at the effects of this. We've got 3 different examples, and all 3 of these examples, this person sold $800,000 worth of land, maybe inherited $800,000, sold a business. This is money they have after tax, okay? This is not a 401k, although you can use these products for 401k rollovers and IRAs. We're just talking about somebody that's got a bunch of money that's already been taxed and they don't know what to do with it. They want it safe and they want to earn a good rate of return and possibly do some tax planning, okay? If we just left this alone at the 6.15% interest rate, again, these rates can be adjusted between now and the time you see this show, but let's say they lock it in. At the end of 5 years, they would have approximately over $1,070,000. Now this is tax deferred, so if they didn't want to pay taxes on it, they could defer that interest and let it grow. You see, the problem with a CD, even if you can find a CD at 6% with after-tax money, that $800,000 is going to produce about $48,000 or $50,000 a year. Even if you don't take it out and you let it compound, you have to pay the tax on it now, which creates something called opportunity cost. With annuities, tax deferred, we don't have opportunity cost. You'll have to eventually pay the taxes. I'll show you how we deal with that in just a second. Here's a good example. What we did is we let it grow. We did a 10-year guaranteed annuity at 5.5%. We let it grow for 5 years, all right? And then between years 6 through 10, we had them send the interest. So this, in this example, person had the money. Maybe they said, hey, for 5 years, I don't need the money. Maybe they're going to still work or they have other sources of income. But in this case, they say, hey, beginning in year 6, I need some income from that tax deferred annuity. In that case, we would be able to send them right at $57,000 a year for the next 5 years without even touching principal. Now, this is powerful, folks. We haven't even touched the principal here. Now you might say, well, Tony, I know, but what happens? Are these rates guaranteed past 10 years? No. But you say, but I want income for the rest of my life. Can I turn these kind of annuities into your beloved mailbox money? Yes, you can. So let's go over this again. So what we're going to do in this example, we're going to defer it 5 years. Okay, the $800,000 is deferred 5 years. Then beginning in year 6 and for the next 20 years, okay? So again, setting the stage, we have a tax-deferred annuity. The person does not need income for 5 years, but beginning in year 6, let's say they're getting into their 70s, they want to guarantee an income for 20 years, and they want to spend the principal and the interest, but they want to keep their taxes down. Remember, all of this tax-deferred interest has to be taxed. If they were just to surrender this annuity all in one fell swoop, there'd be a lot of taxes. So how do we take advantage of something called an exclusion ratio and minimize these taxes? Well, in this case, starting in year 6, we're going to send them about $5,300 per month guaranteed, either to them or their beneficiaries. It doesn't matter. In this example, it was guaranteed at $5,300 a month. Now, at the end of 20 years, there's no more money left. They don't care. They just want to use the money and enjoy it while they still can. But the exclusion ratio means that only $1,971 of that money each month is actually subject to taxes. You see, most investments don't let you do this. As you create all these gains, if you start taking out income, the money that comes out first, that's your interest, has to be fully taxable. With an after-tax annuity, if it's positioned properly and you're working with somebody that understands this, we can stretch those taxes out and lower the taxes, meaning more money in your pocket. So here's my thoughts. If you have at least $50,000 to invest, if you got money idle, you're tired of risking your money, maybe you just want to lock and load and get some really good interest rates and work with a trained retirement specialist that's going to be there for the long haul, why don't you do this? Take advantage of something we call our free 10-minute fiduciary phone call. It's easy to do. You just log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, or you can simply call the number on your screen. Well, does the Bible have anything about sitting around idly by and not doing anything with your money, and in fact, not even taking advantage of these high interest rates? Actually, it does. I'm going to get me a cup of coffee. This is a really good parable that Jesus tells us about earning more money on your money. I'll be right back. Have you recently retired, been laid off, or offered a pension buyout? Has the company you work for moved, been acquired, or closed its doors forever? And finally, do you have a 401k with a previous employer you'd like to move to safer territory? Then take advantage of this opportunity to move your 401k or lump sum pension to Tony Walker Financial. Let's meet in person to discuss your retirement options. Log on now to TonyWalkerFinancial.com to schedule your free, no obligation appointment. Let us help you today. Whenever I meet with a saver for the first time, during my assessment of their finances, I often look for monies that currently have been saved which are idle and not working for them. In other words, money that is earning little to no interest. I describe idle money this way. Imagine you're in a boat and run out of gas in the middle of the lake. The boat is now idle. It is not moving. Now, while we might argue you're not in any danger being idle, you're certainly not going anywhere either.
Heavy.
Same holds true for idle money. While savers should always have some money idle that they can quickly get their hands on in case of an emergency, you do not want too much money idle and earning little to no interest. For Christians with a strong desire to be good stewards of their money, being idle with it is one of the worst things we can do. Don't think being idle with your money is a big deal? Check it out in Matthew 25, verses 24 through 27, where Jesus concurs by sharing the story of 3 different individuals, each given a certain amount of money by their master to invest and which to steward over it. Guess which steward the master is not pleased with? That's right, the one who, out of fear and not knowing what to do with the money, buries it in the backyard. And how does the master respond to this idle money? In verse 27, basically he says, at least you could have gotten off your financial duffer and gotten me a little interest on it. To this point of being idle with one's money and not taking advantage of things to easily improve one's finances, the late great theologian Charles Spurgeon points to Proverbs 24:33, where he compares being idle to laziness, and reminding us just how quickly time will pass us by, where he says, "Like sands from an hourglass, time passes. Life is wasted by driblets, and seasons of grace lost by little slumbers." To which I would say, hey, it's hard to get a lot done when you're idle. So how can savers be better stewards of the money that is currently in our control? Well, for one, right now, this very minute, assuming you have at least $50,000 to invest, you can take advantage of today's high interest rates by safely putting your money with Tony Walker Financial, either by securing certificates of deposit through our Charles Schwab platform, or if you're like me and afraid that these high interest rates may not last too long, you can lock in guaranteed rates with multi-year fixed interest annuities ranging from 5 to 6% guaranteed for periods as long as 10 years. Did I say guaranteed for as long as 10 years? In summary, with today's high interest rates, why not be the lender instead of the borrower? Take some of this idle money that's been sitting there doing nothing, or better yet, maybe take some of that risk off the table with all of those stocks and bonds you've got, and instead get some guaranteed interest on it. Don't just sit there idle and put off till tomorrow what you can easily do today. To learn more about our services and offerings at Tony Walker Financial, do what thousands of savers have done over the years. Take advantage of speaking to me by phone, that's right, the owner of the company, through something we call the free 10-minute fiduciary phone call, just to see if we can be of help. Not only is this a free phone call, but it's easy and fast to arrange. All you got to do is log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com. That's TonyWalkerFinancial.com. You're going to click on that little red button, and that phone call will be arranged with myself. Now, if it merits, if we think we can be of help, you're going to be meeting with me at either our Bowling Green, Louisville, or Lexington, Kentucky offices. So do it now. Log on to TonyWalkerFinancial.com, and if the internet's not your thing, just simply call the toll-free number on your screen. Well, we hope you've enjoyed today's program. We'll look forward to seeing you next week on the Worry-Free Retirement. But between now and next week, if all else fails, you be worry-free and make it a good one.